Don't fuck up, don't fuck yourself. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rude Cooking School podcast. I'm your host, John Hauser III, by myself. This one's going to be like a story time, so get ready to go to sleep, children. I'm gonna read a couple stories from the terrible history of food at times. And before that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I've been cooking this week, the things I've been digging, the things that have been making me get into the kitchen and get down on it, as it were. I was craving weirdly, like I get like this every now and then. I'm sure everybody does. But I was craving like a fish sandwich the other day. So I made fish sandwiches and they were fucking awesome. But like, there's like if you go to the New York Times, there's a fish sandwich, and it's really good. And it's really simple. It's kind of how I like my fish sandwiches. Just kind of easily small fried fish piled on top of each other, some cheese. And then the thing that made it was, the tartar sauce. And it was fucking great. I'm trying to figure out exactly who made it. Oh, it was Sue Lee, who came up with the recipe, and it's fucking really, really good. Mainly for the tartar sauce. The rest of it was good too, but the rest of it's just really simple. It's just fish and cheese. I went the extra step because I love onions and lettuce and mustard on mine as well. I know that sounds kind of weird combination, but the mustard kind of works as a foil to the tartar sauce. Even though the tartar sauce is bright, it gives a little bit more brightness. And then I just am a sucker for lettuce, and most of the time I don't get lettuce, but I just had it, so I did it. But I love, like, if I order a fish sandwich at like a local deli, I get fried fish, cheese, onion, mustard, mayonnaise. And I don't know, it's just a combination that I've had since I was a kid. And I think that's why there was a great place that sold fish sandwiches down at Holland's Market when I was a kid, all the way at the end when you came in on the opposite side that I would normally come in. And it was the greatest fish sandwich of all time. It was so thick, giant piece of cod. And it was deep fried, and it was a really, really weird batter. Like, it wasn't crunchy. Like, the best part would be the ends that were crunchy, but because the piece of fish was so big, it kind of steamed out, and they would just put it on fucking like white bread. And then the white bread would get like kind of soggy. It was so good. It sounds gross when I say I know how it sounds, but the combination of everything was really good. And I just got the same thing that my mother would get, because, I'd be like, can I have a bite? And she'd be like, fine. And then I'd eat like half of it, and she'd get pissed off. And then it finally got to the point where I was like, no, you're getting your own. I'm like, yay. So I started getting them too. And then I was getting them up until, I guess, they just redid the whole market. And from what I understand, they're not there anymore. So I was getting these sandwiches up until like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I missed them. And this fish sandwich from the New York Times is just really simple. And it's just flounder. And Suli's recipe for tartar sauce is fucking banging. I highly recommend it. It was such a good, and it's like thin piece of fried fish. So it's bun, tartar sauce, fresh, thin, crispy piece of fried fish, cheese, crispy fried fish, cheese, tartar sauce, bun. That's the way they have it in the recipe. And damn, it was good. And I made way too much. So it called for flounder, and I went and got a bag of flounder from BJ's and opened it up and realized that all the flounder was like fucking, a 1/4 inch thick. And I was like, oh, that's kind of perfect. And there was like 1,000 slices of it. So I made a ton of it. So guess what I'm having tonight for dinner? which weirdly it heats up really well in the toaster oven because I've already had one last night. Another thing I've been kind of obsessed with lately is cheesy polenta. I've been making giant batches of it, and the whole family's been destroying it. But the thing that really makes it, and the thing that my wife in particular, Leanna, has been going insane for, is I've been topping it with. You just kind of take cherry tomatoes and halve them, or keep them whole. I think I kept them whole for the last time, and small, what are they, like mini bell peppers. So you know how you get that like little bag of like orange and red and yellow bell peppers. So you have the bell peppers, clean them out, start frying them, and get them to where they got a little bit of color on them. You know, like they're kind of brown in spots on the backs, or you know wherever they're hitting the pan for a while in oil. You know, not a lot of oil, a couple, like a tablespoon or two, and then you add basically like a whole big container of cherry tomatoes, and then you just let it go, and it spits up a storm, and then you'll hear it when they start busting, you know, because then it's like because the tomato juice is hitting the pan and aerosolizing and everything, and then you let it go. You can I put a screen on it so it doesn't spit all over the place, and then just let it sit until the tomatoes start getting color, and then you kind of shake it around, hit it with like, I don't know, I think I did maybe a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of wine, salt and pepper, shake it, actually cover it with a cover, and then just let it go. All the steam really gets everything soft, and once the peppers are soft, then you can open it up and sort of cook it down a little bit, and then the liquid and the oil emulsify with the tomato sauce and the sauce from the peppers, and it's pretty fucking awesome. I think last time I threw in like a bunch of thyme just because I had it, and that was incredible. I've done it with rosemary, and it's incredible. That kind of thing. And then just that. So the original thing that I served it with was, you know, polenta, the tomato red pepper stuff, and then some baked chicken thighs, which I just love. But we've just been eating the polenta, which, by the way, the polenta's banging. It's just, you know, pretty, not super fine ground, but not, you know, coarse polenta or cornmeal. I think I'm using white cornmeal, and then chicken stock, whisk in the cornmeal, let it thicken, add a shit ton of cheese. I think the last time, and I used one cup of polenta, which makes a lot of polenta. It's a pretty big pot. And then I added the cheese, and it was a 8-ounce block of cheese. I used just a white, not cheddar, but like Monterey Jack. I didn't even shred it. I just kind of cut it into slices because, dude, polenta's like fucking napalm. And if you just cut it thin enough and just throw it all in there and just let it sit for a couple minutes and then whisk it all together, it just melts like a dream. And then to finish it is just butter, just at the end, just like half a stick of butter. I don't really go in on super duper like buttery. I mean, I'm sure another half a stick would have been great. Or did I? I think I just used half a stick. I might have used a whole stick. I probably used a whole stick because it was such a big pot. For a half a cup, it would be a half stick. So yeah, I used a whole stick of butter. But again, giant pot of fucking liquid, because I think it's the way it works is like it's like a half of a cup to 5 cups of water. So it was 10 cups of water or stock. I used chicken stock with bouillon cubes. I'm not afraid to say it. The Knorr ones I really enjoy for that kind of thing. When it doesn't have to be like, I need this to be a sauce. They work really well in a pinch. And honestly, not even in a pinch. You know, I use the better than bullion stuff for certain things. I use the Nor things for another thing, and actual stock, which I have, for things that I really need it to taste like chicken stock, or get the, you know, that lip smacking quality that you get from like homemade stock with the bones. But the thing about the polenta with the tomatoes and red peppers is together it's just magical. I've been taking it to work with an egg and then just putting it into my, you know, like I have a work bowl, and then heating the egg. You know, I make a little nest and I put the polenta inside the bowl and then make a little nest and then crack the egg inside there and then just microwave the shit out of it until it starts to get really hot and cook the egg itself. And then at some point, you know, I think it takes like 4 minutes, and then I'll swirl around the egg a little bit, do it for 1 more minute, and then take it back to my desk and sort of swirl everything together. It's so fucking good. And my wife has just been eating it for fucking everything. She's been housing it, which is why I've had to make it twice in the last 2 weeks. And seriously, it's a big pot of polenta, like a cauldron of polenta, like a miniature cauldron would be suffice to say. Again, 10 cups of water, which is a lot. And then, you know, the polenta expands, and then you got all the stuff with it. But it's goddamn delightful, and I highly recommend you do it. Looking forward, I'm going to be making more pizza this weekend. We have our nephew coming over. He wants to hang out with his big cousin, who, by the way, this week got into his choice of high school that he wanted, his number one. So we're really proud of him. I'm literally turning into dust as I said, because fuck. No, I'm really proud of him, and that's exciting. But his cousin's coming over this weekend, and I'm going to get him involved because I'm sure he's never made pizza before. I know he likes pizza, but I'm sure, you know, he's my son's 14, he's 12, 11. He's 11. So I'm sure he would really enjoy making the dough. I'm not going to make him make the pizzas unless he really wants to, because, you know, that's kind of fun. But it's really the dough making that's fun and messy, and it's all gooey, and, you know, kids like that shit. And they really like enjoy watching the dough rise, which is even the more fun part, right? It's like, it's alive. So we're going to have him over and we're going to make some pizzas. I'm looking forward to that. We'll do some normal, you know, pepperoni, cheese, and maybe a sausage, which is always fun. And then Sunday, I'm making a whole turkey, because it's mid-Thanksgiving. I don't know what that would be. I was at Safeway getting stuff for the fish sandwiches, the stuff that I couldn't get at BJ's, all the other stuff. And I was walking past the meat department, and they had turkeys on sale for 19 cents a pound. I was like, what the fuck? That can't be real. And I looked, and there was other signage, 19 cents a pound. So I got a 25-pound turkey and paid $4.75 for it. And yeah, it's thawing as of right now. Tomorrow I will brine it. I'll dry brine it. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it. I might go whole fucking like crazy and just rip it apart and sous vide it for 24 hours. I don't like, because at least that way the breast meat will be perfect for like Crosby to take sandwiches, because he actually has been on a big turkey sandwich kick, because my wife made, because we always do meatless Monday. Last Monday, this is actually good to talk about too, she made roasted vegetable sandwiches, which was, you know, mozzarella cheese on top of roasted those small peppers, the orange, red, yellow peppers. She roasted those, tomatoes, onion, and a couple other things, and put that down on the sandwich with the cheese. And then she made a really delicious basil pesto and put that on. And it, Jesus Christ. So, toasted bun, roasted veg, like the fresh, good mozzarella cheese, not the dry stuff for pepper, for pizza, but the sort of moist stuff that you can cut into slices, and melted that on top. And then the pesto in the bread was fucking awesome. But we had a lot of pesto over, and he's obsessed with pesto right now. Like, he loves just eating cherry tomatoes with some salt and olive oil and like a spoonful of pesto, and he'll eat like a whole container of fucking cherry tomatoes. So for lunch, he's been putting it on his sandwiches of just, like one slice of cheese, a bunch of turkey, and then, because he's not a big cheese person, on his sandwiches. It's weird. Or at least American cheese. He's not a big American cheese person. And then a lot of the pesto, and he's been fucking going crazy for that. So the turkey, I think, would be better served that way. But man, fucking 24 hours of cooking a damn turkey in a sous vide thing is such a pain in the butt sometimes, just because it's just going all the time. I don't know. I'll see. I got one day to really figure it out. Tonight I'm really going to research, like how fucking much of a pain in the ass it is. But, it's not that big of a deal. You just, cut the turkey into parts, legs and breasts, and take the take the skeleton and make take the skeleton. I'm a skeleton turkey. You take the skeleton turkey and make a stock from, because you have to. That's the law. And then we'll see. But I couldn't pass it up. 19 cents a fucking turkey. It's insane. Okay, let's get into, I'm going to read you two stories. The first one's pretty short, but it's terrible. Both of these stories are terrible. I mean, people are going to die. So if that's not your thing, I hope you've read ahead. But yes, people will die at this. So this is the story of the 1858 Bradford humbug poisoning. Humbugs are a candy in England. They were very popular. I think all humbugs are peppermint, but it might just be the shape. I'm not exactly sure. But let's get into it. The 1858 Bradford humbug poisoning involved the accidental arsenic poisoning of more than 200 people. 20 people died, and over 200 became seriously ill when sweets accidentally made their way in with arsenic and were sold at a market stall in Bradford, Yorkshire. But how did the sweets get sweetened with arsenic, and how did they get sold to the public? The reason was the high price of sugar. Sugarcane could not grow in the British climate, so sugar had to be brought into the country. While it was thought that King Henry III's court was using sugar as early as 1264, it wasn't until the 14th century that sugar was in general use in Britain. A luxury only affordable by the super rich, it was sold at 2 shillings a pound, or approximately in today's money, 50 pounds a pound. Which 50 pounds in English and American money is like, I don't know, $3,575, something like that. That's not true. Sugar was so valuable, it was kept locked in caddies. In the 17th and 18th century, sugar plantations in the West Indies supplied Britain with sugar, and trading ports such as Bristol grew on the trade. By 1750, there were 120 sugar refineries operating in Britain, but these could only produce 30,000 tons of sugar per year, so prices were very high, even though that 30,000 tons a year is a lot. Vast profits were made in the sugar trade to the extent that sugar was called white gold. The government recognized this and taxed it highly. In 1858, the tax raised from sugar in Britain was a staggering 3 million pounds. And in that money, that's $8 zillion. As the price of sugar was so prohibitive, I'm sorry, 27 zillion pounds. As the price of sugar was so prohibitive, it was often mixed with a cheaper substance or daft. And then this inferior sugar would be sold to the working classes, because of course. Daft was a mixture of substances such as powdered limestone and plaster of Paris. It's not great tasting, but it's perfectly safe for people to eat, believe it or not. Also see bread. Dude, plaster of Paris and limestone have been put in bread for fucking millennia just to make it go further and to give it a little bit more, to extend, because flour would be expensive at the time. I can't imagine what that did to people's teeth. So on to Bradford in the October of 1858. William Harkater, known to locals as Humbug Billy, sold sweets from a stall in the Green Market in central Bradford. This was common practice at the time. His supplier and maker of the sweets, in this case peppermint humbugs, used daft in his sweet production, supplied by a druggist in Shipley. Tragically, on this occasion, due to a mistake at the pharmacy, 12 pounds of arsenic trioxide were purchased instead of the harmless daft. Both daft and arsenic trioxide are white powders. The arsenic trioxide, why do I have a hard time with that? Jesus. The arsenic trioxide was not properly labeled and stored alongside the daft, and so confusion arose. The mistake was not discovered during the manufacturing of the sweets, even though the finished product did look a little unusual. The sweets, which were like, they're like lozenge size, were made by James Appleton, who combined 40 pounds of sugar, 12 pounds of arsenic trioxide, 4 pounds of gum, and peppermint oil to create at least 40 pounds of peppermint humbugs. It's a lot of fucking candy. The sweets reportedly contained enough arsenic to kill 2 people per humbug. Hardaker went on to sell these sweets from his market stall that night. Of those who purchased and ate the sweets, around 20 people died, with a further 200 or so becoming seriously ill with arsenic poisoning within a day or so. All involved were subsequently charged with manslaughter, but none were convicted, which I think that chemist should have been found something. Somebody should have got paid. The Bradford poisoning scandal led to new legislation in order to protect the public from any similar tragedy. The 1860 Adoration of Food and Drink Bill changed the manner by which ingredients could be used, mixed, and combined. The UK Pharmacy Act of 1868 introduced more stringent regulations regarding the handling and selling of named poisons and medicines by druggists and pharmacists. The abolition of the sugar tax in 1874 meant sugar became affordable to all. We've talked about the 1860 Adoration of Food and Drink Bill before, and the Pharmacy Act of 1868. I think going back to the story of the London beer flood of 1814, which kind of kicked all this shit off. It was like the really first big kind of fuck up that like killed a bunch of people and kind of kicked off the like, this stuff should be regulated and, taken care of and be, people should be inspected and that kind of thing. Regulation is good. So yeah, that's the story there. That's a fucking crazy story. And that's really sad because they don't say if, there was kids or whatever, but 20 people died. I'm assuming a couple of them probably were children just because candy, but also who knows, because if this was such a rich thing, it might have just been adults that had the money to buy it and walk around with humbugs and in their pocket and eat them, all linty and shit. Okay, so the next one is another poisoning tragedy. Also, this one mixes with the beer episode from a couple months ago. So this is the tragic story of the 1900 English beer poisoning. So in the second half of 1900, A bizarre poisoning case affected northwest England, particularly Manchester, Liverpool, and Salford. Doctors in the area didn't initially notice that something was off, even though many men and women started seeking help for related symptoms. For several months, doctors saw patients complaining of common symptoms such as muscle weakness, a quote-unquote pins and needles sensation in the hands and feet, and worsening or appearance of rheumatism signs. As Groves and Whitnall's Globe works explains, some patients were paralyzed and couldn't walk anymore. As most of the patients were alcohol drinkers, doctors attributed the symptoms to alcoholic neuritis, better known as alcoholic neuropathy today, a condition caused by heavy drinking characterized by pain and tingling in the feet and hands. Soon, however, symptoms appeared in people who did not frequent the pubs as much as the other people, including a 2-year-old. Additionally, people presented a strange skin coloration that was not common in alcoholic neuropathy. By then, doctors also noticed that an unusually high number of deaths attributed to alcohol neuritis, over 41 recorded in 4 months, had happened. The previous 7 months only saw 22 attributed to the same cause. With the number of cases growing alarmingly, doctors now notice something else. Most cases seem to be happening to beer drinkers, not spirit drinkers. It was Dr. Ernest Reynolds, who was working at the local workhouse infirmary in Manchester, who discovered what was going on. He noticed that all patients shared 3 common characteristics: muscle paralysis, issue with sensory nerves, and discoloration of the skin. While the first 2 are common with alcoholic neuritis, which he believed was caused by beer, not other drinks, the third was not. So Reynolds started to look for other common factors among patients. In a paper published in 1901 in the Medico-Chirurgical Transactions, that's a mouthful, Reynolds explained that many of the patients he saw were also experiencing herpes zoster, a type of herpesvirus caused by a skin rash. He then figured out that the only known drug to cause this type of herpes was arsenic, because it was the case of everybody consuming arsenic at high levels. Reynolds suspected arsenic was in the beer, a theory confirmed after he tested the local beer. After connecting with 2 other doctors and conducting more tests, the common consensus was that the arsenic came from the accidental production of sulfuric acid when processing sugarcane used to produce the beer. This explained why everybody, even those drinking very small amounts of beer — the 2-year-old's father owned a pub and she would get sips of beer from time to time — were getting poisoned and exhibiting very serious symptoms. Once Reynolds made the connection and it was confirmed that the beer was contaminated with arsenic, experts realized there was another problem. The company that produced the contaminated sugars supplied 200 different breweries across the north of England, so stopping production and eliminating the contaminated beer proved tricky. Reports state that after a royal commission was formed and breweries notified, many started immediately recalling beer already sold and testing all new batches. Thousands of barrels of beer were destroyed. Smaller breweries and those in smaller faraway towns weren't as quick to eliminate the contaminated batches. Some were still selling poisoned beer 2 months after the discovery. Once the patients were diagnosed, Reynolds and other doctors working with him instructed the patients to stop drinking beer and focused on treating the symptoms while waiting for the arsenic to leave their system. The patients were given small doses of morphine, diuretics, and lotion for itching skin. By the time it was under control, more than 6,000 people were poisoned and 70 died. However, experts estimate the actual death toll was much higher. Before arsenic was discovered, many patients were likely diagnosed with something else, and their deaths were attributed to alcoholism or other liver issues. The tragic beer poisoning epidemic of 1900 changed very little. Legislatively speaking, the Royal Commission final report indicated that the arsenic likely came from either the malt or the sugars used in the brewing process, but this led to no significant changes in the production or testing at breweries or production plants. Breweries experienced some difficult financial times for a while, but this was temporary, and the industry quickly recovered. In a paper published in Rural History in 1998, experts mentioned that the English farmers were lobbying for about 20 years before the arsenic poisoning incident for tighter control over the quality of ingredients used in beer brewing. While the 1900 beer poisoning epidemic could have been an excellent example of why this was needed, a bill that required statutory control of brewing ingredients was presented. However, it was rejected in 1901 because money. Perhaps more tragic, no legal repercussion or financial restitution were made to those affected. According to Reynolds, those seriously affected by the poisoning required months to recover. In the case of the more serious symptoms like paralysis of motor functions and other disturbances, patients needed as long as 2 years to fully recover. Ugh, that sucks. At least the first one, they got, they were able to pass some laws to control the flow of, the regulation of how things were made in pharmacies and stuff. This, they were just like, they'll be back. And it's almost kind of like, they're like, all right, you can't drink beer anymore. Gin's great probably for you. They probably everybody just switched to harder shit for like 2 months and then just went back to beer. So fucking crazy. There's so many of these stories in history of just like weird, they don't catch it or they don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden they figure it out. Like, it's great. Well, it was great that we had people really looking into this stuff in our government. That's not happening anymore. There's a lot less of those. It's still happening. There's a lot of dedicated people that are still left, but, a lot more of that's going to be popping up because of deregulation. And I promise I didn't make this episode just to bitch about deregulation. Deregulation is always usually bad. More regulation should be had because, companies will do anything to make a buck. They'll cut corners and cut your head off to make $1. But I promise you, I didn't do that. I just found these stories fascinating. So I hope you liked it. And I will see you next week. So for the Rude Cooking School podcast, I'm John Hauser III. Don't yuck my yum. I will see you guys next week and we'll have another blast. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends, tell your family. I'm on Blue Sky at Rude Cooking School. Join us on Facebook at Rude Cooking School. You just look up Rude Cooking School, ROUXDE. And I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Peace.